and welcome to the Heroic Review. This time, we're reviewing the latest episode of Season 4, Episode 6, Power Ponies. I'm Deadlyreg, your moderator, and joining me today is Goombasa.
Hello, and happy hearthwarming, everybody.
Grey Ramos.
Hey, everybody.
PDK.
Anahaseo.
Pounce.
I have been gone for many moons, but I come back for another review. Also, hello.
Reverb.
Hello, everyone.
And Swedely.
Hama-lama ding-dong.
And Webshoter.
Hello, I'm Webshoter, and I played Goathead in Heroic Tales.
Alright, to summarise, this episode was about a magical comic and several horses that got magical powers. So, what was everyone's general opinions of the episode? Goombasa, if you'd like to start?
I really enjoyed this episode, and that's especially good considering that it was a Spike episode, and I haven't really liked a Spike episode since Secret of My Excess.
Grey Ramos?
This episode easily made it to one of my top 3 episodes of enjoying.
PDK?
Yeah, I totally freaking loved it. All the puns, the brilliant villain, everything. Loved it.
Pounce?
It was quite fun, although I don't really enjoy filler episodes like this. It was fun to watch. It was good, I guess. Yeah, no, it was good. It was good. It was good. It was good. Yeah, it was good.
Reverb?
I'm kind of on the fence about it. I mean, there's lots of stuff that I do like about it, and a lot of stuff was just really grated on me. But yeah, I'm kind of on the fence about it, I suppose.
Swedely?
I'm gonna have to agree with Pounce. It was an okay episode, and I, for one, usually really like Spike episodes. I mean, not really, but, you know, I think I enjoy them more than the general populace, so it's good.
That was Damning with Faint Praise Spike episodes. Well done, Swedely. I liked it. I thought it was, it went very quick. It achieved everything it needed to. It was a filler episode, as they've said. It was sort of self-encapsulated, so that it wasn't really adding to anything to the continuity of the show. It didn't really add anything to the characters. Spike learned a lesson he already knew, and that the script pointed out he already knew, so...
Damn it! You already... I was just about to say that.
We'll get to that later. Alright, so we get to more free-for-all discussion. Where do we like to start? Anyone?
Why were they fixing up Celestia and Luna's old castle at the beginning?
Why indeed?
Ooh, I like it.
Why not, though?
To be fair, hasn't everyone already speculated that that's going to be pretty much where they're going? That Twilight's going to get that castle for her own princess self?
We're pretty sure it's going to be Twilight's castle at this stage. It's near Ponyville. It's got the magic Tree of Harmony under it. It's got the box with all the keys in it. It's got a magical organ. It's haunted by an evil ghost horse. Really, everything's there. Ponyville's played out. This is the castles where everything's at.
Got a library.
It's got a library full of ancient, irreplaceable tomes that have survived.
And spiders.
And full of star spiders, which were set up and have clearly been designed with some craftsmanship in mind. So there's a good chance they'll come back as a plot device later on. They've spent a lot of time on the castle in terms of they had shots of it in the flashback episodes. So if we're curious as to why there was a flashback to Nightmare Moon getting blasted by the elements of harmony when it didn't necessarily have anything to do with the episode Princess Twilight Sparkle, it introduced the castle and the event that happened that produced Nightmare Moon. So it's this episode, if nothing else, shows that's the direction they're going to go. Any thoughts, anyone?
I'm not saying that we have to analyze it. I'm just kind of curious as to why all of a sudden, with no real indication in past episodes, that they would just suddenly start restoring the castle the way they have.
I think it's basically a lead-in. We're not meant to have seen anything prior, like a decision. We're just meant to go along with it and then be surprised, in air quotation marks, that the reveal will be Twilight lives there now.
Well, they've introduced it now, and then they introduced the concept and didn't really go any further with it. So they've introduced it, which means that they can, actually use it and play with it later on. They've done the bit of setup. So it was just in here so they've established it so that later on they can reference back to it, and they've got the groundwork already done without having to dump everything in just one episode. And it also meant that Spike could feel a little useless because there was nothing for him to do to help out. So, as a Spike episode, since this was a Spike episode, how do we feel this compares to his other outings?
Exactly the same, honestly.
Yeah, sort of felt
I don't really like a lot of the Spike episodes, for starters, because I always feel like they're backpedaling on what is established when he's a secondary character. I think he works very well as a secondary character, and when the plot focuses on him, they sort of have to shoehorn in the conflict. And I felt the same way about this episode, but it was at least very entertaining. I feel bad saying this, but it was entertaining in spite of being a Spike episode.
The problem I have with Spike episodes is no matter how cool they are, they're all exactly the same. Spike has problems with his self-worth. He needs to be reassured. Something happens, plot device. Suddenly Spike's feeling like he's important again. This kid does not learn that he is a valued member of the main 6.5.
See, that's why I really like Secret to My Excess, because that really explored something different. I mean, it's kind of like with, it's kind of like the issue that people have with Applejack, how they keep retreading the same ground with her.
And Fluttershy. Fluttershy's episodes are always Fluttershy learns that she can be brave.
Yeah, I don't think we can pick on Spike particularly. They are going to keep retreading certain things because I think we've discussed before, the characters grow, but you can't grow too far away from what we identify them as.
Well, yeah, but again, going back to him in the secondary character role, he's always shown as very helpful, very competent, relatively snarky, but then when they put him in the main character role, all of a sudden he has all of these doubts and insecurities about himself, which has never come up in the secondary character role, which I think would be much more prominent if the writers didn't need to force the conflict in episodes where he was the main character.
Yeah, I agree.
Any disagreements?
I don't think I have as big a problem with Spike than anyone else in the fandom. I think I don't know how to kind of really enunciate this, but I don't think his character needs what everyone's kind of demanding of him.
He's not a character that requires any growth.
Yeah, I think he has to be like, I really loved this episode because he, in the first few minutes, he was, so meta and so aware, and it was like, oh, I'm the fall guy. Oh, well. I think he is that, and I just have no problem with him being that. I don't think I need a character arc and a character growth out of every single pony or non-pony in this show.
When we're looking in the fandom, often what people do is they either expand on or they retread stuff. So with Rainbow Dash, we really get the daring do thing brought up a lot because it's the only significant thing that got added to a character, really, apart from the Wonderbolt thing.
And her pet turtle, I suppose, although that's never really been brought up that many times.
Yeah, and she's got a pet turtle now. Tortoise.
Tortoise.
Tortoise. Yes, Tortoise.
But with Spike, he kind of doesn't need anything because his character is he has the motherly relationship with Twilight, and then the rest of it is he's either written as having no self-worth or he's overconfident, and you can be both of those things in the same person, but they don't really entertain both at the same time. He's either unsure of himself or overly sure of himself, and he never at the same time.
How awesome.
Something which is kind of funny? He's got some similar personality traits to Rainbow Dash. I never actually
I was just going to say that. Like in Sonic Rainboom, was really the first time that we really saw that sort of split with her.
It's true, actually. There's a bit of a mirror there. With Spike, though, it's more that he's basically a child, much more so than Rainbow Dash's character. Rainbow Dash seems an egotist. Spike's just young.
I think, the people need to remember he is just an absolute little kid, and we're going to see him retread things, and, rightfully so. You don't learn the lesson the one time you experience the lesson when you're a kid.
I think that's why I don't like him. I hate kids.
The main problem that I have with Spike, again, going back to him being young, is that, once again, it's just another example of how inconsistent of a character he is. Because in some episodes, he's super snarky and hyper competent, and in others, he's just extraordinarily insecure. And it just seems, even if we're going to say that he's young, it just seems so inconsistent with his character. It's like the writers, they want to give him growth, but they don't really know how to nail him down as a character.
I don't get that, because I think you can be on some days you can be up and some days you can be down, and some days you can easily, especially as a child, you can easily be really stupidly overconfident and then feel completely insecure in the space of the same day.
I just had a quick observation for the way I kind of see Spike. I look at Spike as if he's a younger kid with the group of 6, but he is a little bit ahead of himself. And so he can be very snarky and ahead of himself at times. Whenever he's put in the spotlight, he can be, like a kid in a place where he is ahead of himself. He kind of fumbles around, not very focused, loses concentration and everything like that.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
I think the issue that certainly I have is I don't mind that he's kind of bumbling and overestimating his own abilities, and he's also hyper competent at the stuff he does and snarky. The problem I kind of have is he's never both of those things at the same time, and he's perfectly capable, if as a rounded character, of being both of those things in the space of the same episode. But he never is. He's one or the other. So he's essentially two separate characters. When we look at Rainbow Dash, when we say she's insecure but overconfident, we see both of those things in season 1. We see both of those things in Sonic Rainbow, which helps us round her out as a character. If we saw him be the super snarky, overconfident character that fails, but then sort of still knows about having self-worth I think I would like him more, but he just seems inconsistently written as opposed to deep.
I very much agree with that.
What about the pets episode? I seem to remember him being vaguely useless and yet confident.
Yes.
That's what I was going to say. Games Pony Play, the part 1, he's both very snarky and also a bumbling idiot.
And I consider that the second best Spike episode. I really like this one. I genuinely think that the pet episode is the best time for Spike. It's the best written Spike episode, because he just makes his own mess and then fails to clean it up, and that's good writing. Right, the lesson from this episode that Spike learned was that actually he's pretty awesome, and I'm pretty happy with that, because he didn't seem to learn that so much as be reminded of it. Did anyone feel that the lesson, the moral, was appropriate this week, or did we think it was a bit forced? How do we feel?
I thought it was fine. I mean, sometimes we just need a little bit of a reminder. Like, I know I go to my dark places and I just sort of forget who I am and possibly what I mean to other people. I mean,
I think it was a great moral, except in the context of the actual story and episode itself, it was very, very predictable.
Predictable, and the moral itself, when it was introduced, when you introduce a moral like that at the end of a very action-heavy episode, it sort of gets lost in the shuffle, I think. I mean, we did see Spike self-doubting himself and everything, and then being reminded by Twilight that he's a very good assistant, and he's more than just a sidekick to them. But the moral itself, coming at the end of a very action-heavy episode, I just feel doesn't have as much impact.
It didn't feel tacked on like it has done in the past. It was something that was there, but that they weren't paying too much mind to when they did the script. The script's basically just another action-packed little, and somewhere between action-packed and slice of life. And with Spike, it was more that there's this instance where he's not feeling useful, and then he's cast as a character who's written to not be useful in the sort of the meta story. So he doubts himself because of that, and that he actually does nearly save the day right at the start, but then he falls over and completely undoes all his good work. The lesson he's learning is just being reminded that he's actually fairly competent. He never actually learns anything, as we've said. He just gets reminded of the fact that actually, yes, I'm not completely useless. I just doubted myself for a moment there, which feels fairly natural, because it's not like they forced him to learn a lesson he'll forget. They've just reminded him of something the character already, that we all know as an audience, because they've had the episode where he learns about self-worth. I can't remember which one it is, though.
The Owlicious one.
Yeah, I think that was it.
Owl's well that ends well.
Owl's well that ends well. Yes, he learned it there, and he's never really forgotten it so much as continuously doubted himself.
What I wanted to point out was, right at the beginning, when they're sucked into the comic book world, Spike immediately actually does, in a sort of, again, meta way, make himself the most useful character, because he's the only one who reads this comic. So he basically has to explain to the main six what all of their powers are.
So much exposition.
But did they really need to go through this? Was this really necessary?
I think it was completely necessary and very fun. I absolutely adored the fish out of waterness of basically them not having a clue what to do, where to go, who they were, and Spike having to be the one who points everything out. And I think it was necessary that you point everything out because we would be kind of lost as the viewers.
Ditto.
Early on, having him do the exposition of the characters meant that we instantly see Spike actually knows what he's doing. So when he comes to doubt himself later, we already know that he's completely wrong. So it's I think it was well placed in the overall structure of it to have him do that. What did we feel about all the superheroes that were knocking around in this episode? Did we think that any of these 6 heroes on offer were better than the old standby, the Mayor Do Well?
I would totally watch just a cartoon of the Power Ponies, yeah.
Agreed. Yes.
Oh, definitely.
I agree.
I felt like Twilight was really useless in this episode.
Which is nice and a total reversal of every other episode where she can magic the day away.
Except there was no explanation for it. I mean,
Why Twilight was useless?
What do you mean?
why she can't use magic as a different character now. I mean, I thought that was pretty
It was
strange.
a different power set. It wasn't just using magic, it was having a completely different power set and no basis for comparison.
Yeah. But
Something I'd noticed was the horn Twilight had as the character whose name escapes me looked artificial, so there is a good chance that in the Power Ponies comic, Twilight's character is a Pegasus with an artificial horn that lets her do magic of a kind.
I thought it was like some sort of cap that she puts on. Like maybe she's like Dr. Xavier and made something to put on her horn so that it would amplify her power or something. I don't know.
Sorry, complete nerd, Professor Xavier, not Dr. Xavier.
I was just going to say, I think that this is definitely what the appeal of this episode is going to be. People who are going to take this superhero team and are going to just nerd out about it all the time, forming their own theories about the backstories of these particular characters. And I would not be surprised if we saw a full Power Ponies comic being posted on DeviantArt in a few weeks because of this.
Yeah, the nerd fandom is just going to run with it and run. Because, yeah, I love superheroes, and I would totally love just a spin-off superhero comic.
I'm trying not to nerd out on y'all.
I bet the first pictures will be of Fluttershy Hulk.
Fluttershy Hulk was best Hulk.
Speaking of powers, does anyone else feel like Applejack once again got shafted?
She got
I got this magic rope I can control with my mind. Woo!
She was Batman. It was basically
She was
horse Batman.
I thought it was more like Wonder Woman.
No,
She was Wonder Bat.
she had a magical lasso that could trap people. She had a utility belt with batarang / horseshoe orangs, and her parents are dead. So,
Oh, so good.
Jeez, man.
what? It's true.
You didn't have to go there. You really didn't.
Speaking of ponies getting shafted with their powers, I feel like Pinky kind of got the horn too. She can already do that. She already goes off screen and comes back with whatever she wants.
Pinky can only zip around super fast if the results will be funny. Now
Yeah.
she can do it if it's helpful.
I have to say, on the powers front, I absolutely adored that Rarity was the first who just instantly got everything about her powers and was using it in the most brilliant ways.
Yes,
Only one
Rarity
for
was
Rarity.
definitely my favorite by far.
The flying carpet, the tea set.
The stairs that she made to get out of the cage.
Stairs.
Yeah, the way she went down the stairs. That was
Yes,
fun.
I love that.
Yeah, she was complete consummate professional. Everyone else is still figuring out, and she's 10 steps ahead.
It was just basically her power was design.
Green Lantern.
She was the
sort of
Green
power.
Lantern. Come
Yeah.
on.
No, but
She was tugging down the Twilight. That was a nice try, darling.
she's an artist. She knows how to imagine things and create. And this was just let her create things in a more solid way.
She actually had, in my opinion, a much better imagination than some of the actual Green Lanterns that I've seen in the comics.
What did we feel about the Maniac as a villain? Does she enter the roster sharing the seat with Sombra?
Oh, she's
and
top.
She is
My
brilliant.
favorite villain now.
She is fantastic.
I kind of thought of her in the same way as Aristotle.
Yeah, I got that feeling too when she was first introduced.
Way over the top, way crazy, way manic textbook villain.
For like the first few spoiler images that we saw, I couldn't understand why her laugh had such a wide mouth and why she looked all crazy. It wasn't until I actually saw the episode that I drew the connection to the Joker.
Yeah, her animation was really weird, and that was fantastic.
Even her color palette draws from the Joker.
There was a heavy Joker element with the green hair, I think. I think that was definitely a nod to the Joker.
Also, the maniacal laughing at when she got tied up and she was just laughing crazily. That's classic Joker.
Yeah.
I was just going to say I loved her character because of all the different comic book elements, you know, the movement, the slinkiness of the Joker, the kind of color scheme of the Joker, the Doc Ock style movement with the mane, and the Mr. Freeze puns. Love the puns.
Yes, puns. So many puns. Oh, she's, top villain just because of the puns.
I really enjoyed her animation and her facial expressions, especially because she really sounded crazy and she really looked the part, like the way that her mouth would widen at certain points and the really sort of disturbing smiles that she would give at certain points. It kind of brought me back to Pinky and Party of One, the expressions that she was giving.
Yeah, DHX was pulling out all the stops on this one.
I was just going to say something else that added to the facial expressions was the eyes. Did anybody else notice the two-tone eyes?
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
that was
two-tone
nice.
eyes.
I like the fact that her body would like bend and move in almost unnatural ways because she could be supported by her hair. So her legs and her body would just be all like contorted and crazy when she was laughing. And I thought that was really good as to just how recklessly insane she really must be.
She sort of had a deal to her as well, like how she would manipulate her hair to like make different sorts of furniture, and she would just sit there being the smart aleck or being the smug villain, and then, you know, that just seemed like something Discord would do.
And she was also very genre savvy too. I mean, she set up an egg timer so that a minion would know when he had to keep spraying the main six to keep them from moving again. I actually really enjoyed that because she did sort of avert the stupid villain trope.
Yeah, she outsmarted like 90% of villains in comics even today.
Okay, Ethan, we were just saying our opinions of the Maniac. What did you think of the Maniac, the evil horse that they were battling?
Well, from what I saw, I don't know. I don't know if you're trying to go for the Joker feel or something. She was a lot more entertaining than Sombra.
I think we can all say with absolute certainty that the Maniac would have made a better season opening villain than Sombra. Thoughts on the design of her?
Wow. Interesting. I mean, she definitely had the super villain look down, that much was certain.
Alright, so we had the thrilling action-packed finale with the battle in the warehouse. General thoughts on that action-packed scene?
Yes!
Awesome, especially Hokusai.
Well, I can definitely see why this was the very first episode of the show to be given an FV rating for fantasy violence.
Ooh, that's a good point. Alright, so there was thrilling violence, there was Rarity making a flight of stairs. I think the episode had everything. Do we feel this was still... Do we feel like this episode was written with the older audience in mind, or do we feel this was still aimed squarely at MLP's target audience of 6 to 10-year-old girls?
I felt like it was an homage to old comics, and maybe that was kept with the older audience in mind, but you know, like you look back at cartoons from my age, your age, when we were all 9 to 13, and we see them making homages to old styles of entertainment like comic books, classic cartoons like black and white Mickey Mouse, yada yada yada. So this isn't anything new, but yeah, I feel like it was done with both in mind.
But it was different in that we all know that girls don't read comic books. Isn't that right, Phoenix?
Oh, I could waffle on for about an hour on how wrong you are, but we'll move on because we're all accepting.
I'm kidding.
I know,
Listen,
I know.
Commenters, I swear I was kidding.
The thing I enjoyed was that it had... if we compare this episode to, say, The Mysterious Ne'er-Do-Well, that had a lot of superhero references, but they were very direct. There was the Friendly Neighborhood Rainbow Dash, whereas this had a lot more superhero, but a lot less specific references to comic attributes, and a lot more just fantastical nature.
I just think as comic fans, we can get those references. As smaller children, demographic-wise, might not be so into comics to go, oh, Applejack was Batman, oh, Rarity was a Green Lantern, and I think they kept it subtle enough that you could just enjoy the powers without us having our nerd radars go off.
I was just agreeing with Phoenix that they probably wrote this with a lot more subtle references to the superheroes and everything for the older people, and just the younger ones could just enjoy a, Power Pony episode.
Yeah, you guys are saying, like, the references were not as, what's the word?
Overt?
Subtle?
Like, obvious. Yeah, were more subtle, except I thought some of the actual quotes were very, like, that's something which really grated on me a little bit, is sort of how, in your face some of the quotes were like. I mean, as soon as they went into it, Spike went straight into that Robin quote.
Yeah, I felt the same way.
And
Which quote? You're going to have to remind me here.
Holy new personas, Ponies!
I guess my point is that that's like one example. If we're talking obvious references, Applejack would have had a bat symbol on her and stuff. The references really weren't obvious, is my point. That one quote aside, that will have just been slipped in there because a writer wanted to have a laugh, possibly.
Writers.
There is a point that Swedely made there, which is this is the first episode to have 3 credited writers. So I'd be interested in knowing why.
Who were they?
Megan McCarthy, someone new, and Charlotte Fullerton, who wrote Suited for Success.
The third one was Betsy McGowan.
Thank you. Who hasn't written on the show before. I imagine she's written a lot, though.
I would just like to point out that season 4 so far has had a great track record for new writers on this show.
Yeah.
Everyone's brought in they're bringing in an A game here, so they clearly care a lot about this show. I think this is more or less the Hub's flagship show at this point. All right, the very end, it's revealed that Spike bought the comic from the Magic Comic Shop. Is that right?
The Enchanted comic shop.
Stop out!
Yeah. How do we feel about that being the plot device?
It's ridiculously silly, just like all comic book plots should be.
I was disappointed.
I have a thought, and this is probably not right at all, but it's just my thought. On the very, very end of the episode, I don't know if everyone caught it, but the comic book just disappears.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that.
And there's 3 writers on this show, including Megan McCarthy. So do you think that this might be a setup for a future episode with a villain returning, all of a sudden teaming up with other villains, if I may speculate?
The shadow creature.
Maybe. I mean, this is the second time we've had a really weird, sort of mysterious ending in the castle.
That's a good point.
Maybe the Mayor of Shadows took it for something to read.
Also, the Star Spider setup. There's a lot of things happening in this castle. The Star Spiders, the shadow at the end of the episode, the comic disappearing at the end of the episode. I think there's a setup coming up. That's just my thoughts.
I really do hope that that is the case, that it's being set up for something more, because I really didn't like the ending of the episode, and it was really the only big nitpick that I had was just the arbitrary introduction of this enchanted comic shop that apparently sells literally enchanted comics, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure is illegal. If not, Celestia should really check that out.
Yeah, this does seem like you should have to have a license or something to sell them. Personally, I think that the comic vanishing was just because it was a mysterious comic, but anything that would get us more Maniac, I'm totally behind believing.
Yeah. I just wanted to note that, as you guys said, with all of these little bits and pieces coming together, I find it very interesting that they haven't directly addressed the overarching plot for several episodes. The last time I think that they actually talked about the box was at the beginning of Castlemania, and since then we've only been getting little bits and pieces, none of them seemingly being directly related to the overarching plot.
I think when they come to address the box again, it's going to be in the form of an episode dedicated to a character. That's my thought. I would like to be surprised, because this show continues to surprise me despite being written for 6 years and up. But I do believe when they come back to it, it will be the focus of the episode rather than something peripheral to it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I've just got one thing.
Okay.
In the idea of overarching plots, where is Derby?
Exactly what I was thinking. Thank you.
Sure,
Thank
she
you,
hasn't
thank
been
you.
showing up in the background as of late.
And we were told that she would get lots of love, or at least as much love as she got in Equestria Girls, and I felt like she got a lot of love in
She
Equestria
did.
Girls, so she better
She got like
freaking
2
show up.
cameos. You guys, I think, are wishing for something you're not going to get.
3.
Mid-season
You know
villain.
what? Maybe I can wish for what I want because I
Hold on,
want
hold on.
it.
Sweetly, I know where she is.
There,
I know
there,
where she
there.
is.
It's okay, sweetie.
She's in the TARDIS. She's in the TARDIS right now
No!
with Doctor Who's.
No Doctor Who's references.
I'm going.
No Doctor Who's references in
She's
this
in the
chat.
box.
Okay, I am ending it here. Alright, that was the heroic review. I'd like to thank my contributors this time, Webshoter,
Thank you for having me here.
Goombasa,
It's been a pleasure. Have a happy holiday, everyone.
Grey Ramos,
Adios, amigos.
PDK,
Annyeong.
Pounce,
Merry Christmas, you wankers!
Reverb,
See you later, everyone. Thanks for listening.
and Swedely.
Derby, where are you?
And I was Deadlyreg, your moderator. Thank you for listening, and Merry Christmas.